Hey, how are you doing, girl? It's me calling out from the ether, the echo of my voice, my ghost voice. Oh, you know what? I haven't pulled together my lighting. Oh my God. Here, let's just stash this over here. Maybe this will be a little bit better, or maybe not. Maybe it'll just cast harsh shadows everywhere. That might be a little better. Good. So, how you doing, girl? Today is the 12th of June, and I hope you're doing well. Um, we just had, I just listened to the SpaceX launch. I listened to it. I didn't see it because there was a lot of fog in the air. It was actually rather cloudy today. And so there was really not much to see, but there was plenty to hear. That's for sure. Boy, those sonic booms at the end with the first stage booster landing is pretty impressive sound. There's a lot of energy behind those sounds. So yeah, there was the RadarSat launch this morning at 7:17 a.m. And that was a very exciting way to start the day with a nice rocket launch that appears to be successful. So glad to have that happen, and glad to know about it. And I hope it didn't wake you up if you were asleep during that time. I hear that teenagers like to sleep in a lot. You know, as I've grown older, I sleep in less often. I find myself waking up at 5:30 in the morning, very routinely, and it is rare for me to wake up late in the morning. For me, late in the morning is like 7:30. That's about as late as I wake up anymore. And I only wake up that late, like 7 or 8 o'clock, only if I didn't get to bed until like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. It's just the human brain, the aging brain. All those, I'm losing all those neurons and all the dendrites, and the neurotransmitters are just going poof. Anyway, I'm happy that I'm getting the sleep that I'm getting. And I ought to be getting a lot of good sleep lately because I'm working out pretty regularly. Today I'm going to be working out at the gym. I'm going to be running on the treadmill. And even though I love running on the treadmill, I am more than happy to run outdoors. In fact, I've been thinking about doing a run around La Prisma mission just for fun, and also tracking my progress using GPS, using some kind of cell phone software app that will help me track the path. And I think that could be fun. And, you know, if you want to participate in something like that, like a run around the mission, a training run for 3 or so miles, that sounds amazing to me. I would totally love to do that. I run every week anyway, and I have a feeling that you might do some training runs too. So who knows? Maybe we will perchance or by chance meet up around the mission one of these days. Who knows? I'm really not sure what your training schedule is these days. So yeah, been working out. I've made a commitment to myself to try to work out 7 days a week. So that is a new thought that I've been entertaining, and I've been looking at fondly as being a real possibility. What that means is that I'll be attempting to work out on weekends, which might be kind of a struggle for me because most of the time on weekends I'm doing something. I'm usually doing something big, like last week I went to Hurricane Harbor in Valencia, California, and which is a water park. And you know, maybe on days that I do that, I won't work out But on any other days, like I remember a day leading up to that trip and a day afterwards, I didn't work out. And I remember feeling sad about having not worked out. I think I decided to not work out the day before I went to the water park. Sometimes I like having, before I go on a big trip, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just completely rest the day before because I want to be fully recovered when I'm on vacation. I don't want to. Usually, see what happens is when you work out, sometimes you tweak stuff, right? You tweak an arm, you tweak a back muscle, you tweak a neck muscle. And what I mean by tweak is that you just get this persistent, like nagging pain. Like I got some, of course, I've got some muscle pain. I always have muscle pain, muscle soreness now because of my continual workouts. So I've got a tricep here that's a little sore. That is not necessarily an ideal state to be on vacation in. And so sometimes what I do is just give it a day. Give it a day's rest before a big vacation so I can sort of enjoy that vacation without some of the struggles of sore muscles. So who knows? Maybe this sort of commitment or plan to work out 7 days a week won't quite work out. But I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to work at least 6 days a week. 6 or at the very least 5 days a week, which is what I'm working out now. I don't know. Here's the thing. I wish I was more committed in the gym. I mean, I am very committed. I'll work out during my lunch break at work, and I'll work out after work, and I'll work out on weekends. That's no problem. It's just that I'm always getting this sense that in order to become the beefcake that I want to become, I'm going to need to work out even more frequently and have workout bouts that are more lengthy than I have right now. Right now, my workout bouts are really between an hour and an hour and a half long. And which is no small effort. But I have a feeling that in order to be truly athletic, here's the problem. I think it might have to just hinge on this fact that I'm not truly athletic. Sure, I work out frequently, and my workouts last a good hour and a half. But the bar continually rises in terms of, am I an athletic person? Not really. The fact is, I tend to be fairly sedentary. Much of the time, I have a desk job and I'm just sitting around surfing the internet and reading and studying for my classes. I wouldn't call myself an athlete by any stretch of the imagination. And maybe that is what having a strong body entails. I mean, sure, I'm doing a good job, but becoming a true athlete, I think I might need to put in a little bit more time and effort in my workouts, working out more frequently and working out longer. I know. There seems to be no upper limit. Anyway, so that's what's been going on in my mind about, I'm really happy with my level of fitness. I mean, super satisfied. I mean, just was it yesterday? Yesterday I did like 25 pull-ups, weighted pull-ups. Weighted. I had a 15-pound belt on with some weights that I strapped on. That's pretty darn good. So I'm feeling strong, but I'm also not feeling as athletic as I could possibly feel, I think. So I might just increase the volume or increase the intensity or something with my workouts. I'm really not sure where I want to take it. The sky's the limit, though. Life requires balance, right? There's a balance between planning and spending and um, working out and study and just keeping things together logistically, getting the rest that I need. There's and also I tend to be somewhat extroverted, and so I need that human interaction, that face to face connection with other people, and so I need to take time out for that. And really, that social aspect of my life takes time to work out. There's drive time there, drive time back. They're practical hoops I have to jump through in order to sort of get the contact that I need in order to feel satisfied with my social circles. And so there's just, life requires a balance. I haven't quite perfected things yet, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm, uh, you know, the fact is, we as human beings are rather successful. In fact, quite successful. And it's in many of our endeavors. I would say we are probably more successful than not. Human beings do a great job of doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And I'm so pleased. It turns out that, all the problems in the world, most of them are first world problems. you know, I would say a good majority of them are first world problems, like when relationships break up or sour, or when people get injured, like, oh, I hurt my shoulder when I was skiing in Tahoe. That's a first world problem. you know, uh, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like I'm on my way to the Disney amphitheater to see a musical, and I'm in gridlock for 45 minutes, an hour and a half, and I'm late to the play. Like, that's a first world problem, bro. That's not that big a deal. I'd say, oh yeah, okay. My Instagram feed is not happening because my Wi-Fi access has been uh, delayed. It's not my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi broke. My home router broke. Okay, that's a first world problem. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I'm really glad that many or much of my problems are first world problems. I think we sort of lose perspective sometimes about um, how bad things are. I think we tend to be overly critical. Just our society, we're overly critical personally, overly critical as maybe a couple, overly critical as a family, overly critical as a business, overly critical as a town or city, overly critical as a state and as a nation and as a world, as a resident of the world. But you know what? That's good. It's about life is about taking action. It's about making judgments, and before a judgment sort of rises to the top in terms of its quality, there's got to be a lot of there's a foundational number of very poor judgments that have to happen first. It's almost a law of nature, right? The human brain, when it tries to figure out its external reality, is just throwing spaghetti up on the wall to see what sticks. It's just throwing spaghetti up on the wall. And, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if the human brain just sort of was sort of, how should I say, took some time to come to conclusions and final judgments, and then at the end of that process, completed with this perfect jewel of a judgment, of a considered thought that was just perfectly perfect in all of its elements. And then there's a delay for some amount of time, and then yet another perfect jewel of thinking, but that's not how the brain works. The perfect jewels of thought happen once or twice a month. Maybe once or twice a week if you're lucky, if you're a super genius. But most of the time, your brain is throwing mediocre thoughts up against the your external reality, trying to make sense of it. And so, we sort of always all have to deal with the tumult that's created, the chaos that's created from these our brains spitballing. And it does a really creative job sometimes, but and maybe it can be more creative in some respects, but um, the brain does what the brain does. Speaking about the brain doing what the brain doing, it does. I've had a pretty amazing revelation recently. It's really an inspired thought. I've spoken to you about it already, and I think I might have even spoken to you about it yesterday. It relates to Stoic philosophy and this idea of paying attention to the distinction of what you can control versus what you can't control, and try to keep your thinking and thoughts in the realm of the stuff that you can control, and just consider lightly um, things that you can't control. I mean, after all, there's almost no connection between what you can control and what you can't control, other than that distinction. There's quite a bit in your external reality that you can't control. There are like currents. I like to think of them as currents in the ocean. Like if you were swimming in the ocean, there's some currents that are just too swift for you to get any traction, to gain any speed in certain directions. The ocean currents, like if you were swimming in them, there are currents out there that will completely overcome you in terms of your speed and direction. And there are lots of currents. There's social currents. There are even currents within other people's brains that you have no control over. Now, there are some who have organic thinking disorders or disabilities. And in a way, that's a kind of current that you have no control over. They've got organic problems with their brain. Maybe they've had a stroke, or whether it's an ischemic stroke or whatever. Then there are others. It almost doesn't matter, because these currents, and I'm using the word currents as a metaphor just to describe things you can't control. These currents are basically anything outside of your own mind, and certainly within your own body. Human beings have, from an individual standpoint, exquisite control of their thinking, exquisite control of their moving, their behavior, their mental behavior and their physical behavior. I think we really do have exquisite, ever delicate control of these processes, and it's wonderful. And when you think about it, our control, our self-control, is high. On a scale from 1 to 10, I think our self-control is really high in terms of our mental and physical abilities. But here's the thing. There's a boundary of control, and it's really just if you just look at the surface area of the human body, that's the boundary. That's the boundary of control. Really, if you have any goals, your goals should really be focused on actions that happen within that boundary, within the boundary of your skin, the outer layer of your skin. Any other goals that you have about the way you want your nation to turn out, or the way you want your state, whether it's your state government to turn out, or how you want your family members to behave, or how you want even your romantic mate to behave. that is like way out of your control. The currents is just, they have nothing to do with you. You know, said your romantic partners have been conditioned by years by their environment, and in fact, and every other action and behavior of other people and animals, and it's all outside of your control. Even physical structures outside of your control, in the sense that they'll undergo stresses and strains, and those forces will concentrate in certain areas, and then things will break, and when and where and how is largely not strictly predictable, and also out of your control. Now, you do have some marginal control over some of these things, like your engineered structures, or you have some influence over your family members as a result of your behavior, and thinking, but it's modest. It's modest control, and it's important when you're forming, say, goals about the future. Well, this is what I'm finding when I'm forming goals about the future. It's really important for me to focus more so on the things that I can control and less so on the things that I can't. I only have modest control for what other people do. My friends, my romantic partners, very modest control. Really, I can only do what I can only control my own behavior. you know and it sometimes turns out that other people's choices are largely inexplicable. you know and I think people, when they do stuff, I know they can often come up with reasons for why they do stuff, but I have a feeling that even those reasons are guesses about why people do stuff. you know I do stuff all the time, right? I make decisions all the time, and um, I change direction in my behavior all the time. And in retrospect, I could come up with some ideas about why I made those changes in behavior. And then, from a perspective nature, from a perspective, a prospective perspective, I can come up with reasons, like I can forecast reasons why I might have made changes, or I might make changes in the future. But I think that is mostly guesswork. You know, I think that I can be wrong regarding my rationale, my reasons, my justification for making decisions. In fact, sometimes it's a mystery to me about why I do the things I do. It just is. Um, yeah. Why do the ideas that pop into my head precisely when they do? Why do I provide the answers that I provide when I do it? It's not entirely clear to me where these answers come from. Like, for example, I might be asked a trivia question. You know, what determines my answer specifically? The process is so quick. I'm I'm not I'm not sure that I can explain it. I'm not sure why I remember a certain phrase or answer to a quiz question uh, in some instances, but can't answer a similar question sometime later, or don't have answers sometime later. It's just not altogether quite clear. I have certain limits in my understanding and to my self-awareness, and there are certain there are actually limits to my ability to explain why I do the things that I do. I cannot provide a 100% explanation. Sometimes I make decisions for reasons that I'm not aware of. Like I might have a candy bar, or like I might be on a sugar high and make a set of decisions that I can't explain. I mean, I might explain them. I might attempt to explain them, but the real reason might be that I just had a candy bar or I had a sleepless night. Here's an example. Last weekend, I went to Santa Barbara and I went swimming in the ocean, which was a lot of fun. I threw on my wetsuit. I had a great time swimming in the ocean. And when you do swim in the ocean, well, it's very cold water. And I know that I have some kind of behavioral tendency where when I'm exposed to cold water, my body gets really hungry. I just become famished and I just want to eat everything in sight. And well, anyway, that's what happened that evening. After swimming in the super cool water of the ocean, I just got super famished and just started eating everything in sight, which is no problem. I predicted it myself. I recognize, oh, this extreme hunger that I'm getting happens every time I expose myself to very cold temperatures in the water. This is normal. But you know what? I didn't immediately recognize it. I just recognized that I was super duper hungry. But you know what? That decision to do a lot of eating that night. In fact, that set of decisions was it was purely biological. It was just the human body's response to being in cold water, very cold water. A few hours later, there's a biochemical response. I had almost no control of it. I just had to consume as much food as I could. It's kind of interesting how I was sort of overtaken by that experience, right? I was sort of, I was soaking and I was swimming in very cold water one instant. And then for a few hours later, I was captivated by needing, at least feeling like I need to eat lots of food. And that single event of, say, swimming in the ocean just sort of dominated my behavior for the next 5 or 6 hours, my eating behavior for the next 5 or 6 hours. It's kind of profound when you think about it. Like I really didn't have control over it. I was just, if I could find food of any kind, I would eat it. And, I'm pretty convinced that the real reason is just a fluke of human nature where, there's a physical challenge to the body, like low temperature, and your body tries to compensate. And, it creates these behaviors that sort of mostly lie dormant, but it's quite overpowering. It's like there was nothing that I could do to stop it. I would have had to really use a lot of self-control to go to bed and sort of brave the feelings of intense hunger. I think I could have done it, but I think I mostly just decided to give in because that's just what bodies do. Bodies get really hungry when you soak them in very cold water for a long time. It's just what happens, man. So anyway, that's just me. That story is just me acknowledging how much of my behavior is out of my hands. How a lot of my behavior is just a product of chemistry and a product of biology and isn't necessarily a product of my own will. And recognizing that other people that's happening with other people too. And in some way, in some insignificant way, human beings are all automatons. We're clockwork. You hand people medications and they start behaving differently. They just do. These medications affect their brain, affect their nervous system, or other aspects of the body mind, and behavior gets changed like clockwork. Anyway, with that realization, I'm going to be heading off to work. I hope you have a wonderful day, Emily. A wonderful summer vacation. I hope it's going well. I hope you enjoyed listening to those very loud sonic booms today during the launch. We had that radar sat launch. And I'm going to be heading out to work, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I love you very much. Take care, girl. Bye-bye.